Today, we're diving into a text that makes a pretty bold claim that one of the world's most controversial plants is actually a demonized natural healer. We're going to break down the arguments from this fascinating source slide by slide just to see what its perspective is.
Okay, let's start with a piece of history from our source that might kind of surprise you. You see, this plant wasn't always so controversial. Back in the 19th century, it was so mainstream that Queen Victoria's own personal doctor prescribed it to her for menstrual pain. Think about that for a second.
And that same doctor, Sir J. Russell Reynolds, went on to publish this quote in The Lancet, which is, a top-tier medical journal. He called it one of the most valuable medicines we possess. And let's be super clear here. In 1890, this was not some fringe idea. This was mainstream medical thinking.
So that brings us to the big question, right? How on earth did a valuable medicine get turned into one of the most legally restricted and controversial plants on the planet?
Well, to answer that, our source suggests we have to look back at the history. So this first section is all about that dramatic fall from grace, the journey from royal approval all the way to public enemy number one.
And the shift was incredibly fast. In the 1800s, it's a staple in the medicine cabinet. By 1890, it's got a royal endorsement. But then you just fast forward about 40 years to the 1930s, and the whole thing flips on its head. A massive propaganda campaign, spearheaded by movies like Reefer Madness, starts painting this picture of the plant as something that causes insanity and violence.
Okay, so what is the science behind this, at least according to the source material? The author argues that the reason this plant even has an effect on us is because of a system that's already built right into our own bodies.
And here's the core concept. It's called the endocannabinoid system. The source explains that our bodies produce their own natural cannabis-like compounds. The author uses this great lock and key analogy. Our biology has these receptors, those are the locks, and the compounds in the plant are like the keys. It's almost like our bodies were designed to interact with it.
And there are two main keys that the source really focuses on. First, there's THC, which is the famous psychoactive part. But then you've got CBD, the non-psychoactive component, which the author describes as the calming, anti-inflammatory part. You can think of them as two totally different keys that open two different doors inside that system.
So, if the plant has this natural connection with our bodies, why was it so aggressively targeted? The source lays out a few key reasons for why it was demonized.
According to the source, the reasons were, well, there were a few. The author claims that hemp, as a crop, was a huge industrial threat to the paper and plastic industries. This was then amplified by those propaganda films like Reefer Madness, which also, by the way, pushed a really ugly racial fear narrative. And finally, the author points to the financial interests of a brand new medical system that was moving away from natural cures and towards synthetic, patentable drugs.
Now, to explain how it all supposedly works, this healing mechanism described in the source, the author uses this really clever analogy they call the nightclub theory. It's a pretty cool way to picture a really complex process.
All right, let's walk through this. Imagine your body is a packed nightclub, and all your cells are the people inside, having a good time. A disease, say a tumor, is like a big fight breaking out on the dance floor. So in this scenario, cannabinoids like THC and CBD, they're the elite doormen, the security. They roll into the club, completely ignore all the peaceful, well-behaved cells, and they go straight for the troublemakers. Once they find those rogue cells causing the fight, they either force them to calm down or they kick them out for good.
And that final step, the kicking them out part, is linked to a real biological process called apoptosis. It's basically programmed cell death. The source describes this as the cannabinoid telling the rogue cell, hey, your time is up, forcing it to self-destruct. And by doing that, it removes the problem without hurting any of the healthy cells around it.
But, and this is a really big but, the source doesn't just talk about the potential benefits. It includes a very critical warning, stressing that this is absolutely not a one-size-fits-all solution, and using it without the right knowledge could be really dangerous.
So, here's the crucial question. Is it safe for everyone? Well, according to the author, the answer is a firm no, and understanding why is, well, it could literally be a matter of life and death.
So here is the author's main caution. For certain cancers that are driven by hormones, like the ones listed here, the source warns that cannabis can have the exact opposite effect. Instead of stopping the fight, it could actually fuel it, maybe even speed up tumor growth. This is why the author stresses over and over that expert knowledge is absolutely essential.
And that leads us to the author's final core message. The ultimate takeaway from the source isn't just go use this plant. It's to understand the profound importance of personal responsibility, of doing deep research, and making truly informed decisions. It kind of leaves us with the thought that in any healing journey, knowledge isn't just power, it's everything.